Hey guys, welcome back to the show. I'm Parker Emerald, and this is the Conversation Station. Today's guest is a leading advocate and authority on augmented reality and has partnered with major brands such as Wrap Snacks, SXSW, and AfroTech. He is CEO and co-founder of InterApp, a company that has developed an augmented reality platform for creatives and consumers to transform print with interactive digital experiences. He has raised over $1.2 million in pre-seed funding to bring massive adoption and augmented reality as a necessary consumer utility and tool. So without further ado, let's give a warm welcome to InterApp co-founder and CEO, Mr. Will Brown. Welcome on, sir.
Thanks for having me. Great introduction.
Yeah, I'm just excited to have you on. I mean, I know we met briefly at a golf event.
Yes.
But I've been seeing the stuff that you were doing with InterApp for a long time, and I just want to open this off by asking, where did the platform come from, and more accurately than that, what exactly is the platform for those that don't know, and then we'll take it from there.
Yeah. So the background originated from me pivoting in the space I'm currently in. I'm actually in the graphic design and printing space. So by trade, I'm a graphic designer. I do a lot of designs for startup businesses, emerging businesses, and legacy businesses, all their print marketing, advertising. And then I've been fortunate enough to start my own print services. So I had a print shop. I had 2 print shops. So I would design and print these products for my customer base. But wanting to add a digital component to print has always been something that always interested me, because when I came up in the space, social media was becoming popular, Facebook and Instagram. So a lot of my customers at the time, whenever we would print flyers for them, they say, "Oh, can you print my Facebook handle on there?" That was before Instagram was even popular. It was Facebook. "Can you print the Facebook on there, like my page?" So that was always something like, okay, that's how people began to kind of merge print and digital at that point in time. Then Instagram became popular, so now it became add my Instagram and my Facebook on my printed flyer or business card. So having that always in the back of my head, I said, man, it would be cool if there's some kind of way where we can merge print and digital. And really just trying to figure out that solution led me into what I discovered, augmented reality. I didn't know what augmented reality was at the time, but I discovered it by going to taking a visit to Seattle, the Space Needle, with my girlfriend at the time. But for a Valentine's Day trip, we went to the Space Needle, and they had this experience called space spots. Little circles, graphics on the ground. You interact with the little printed graphic, and an AR experience of the Space Needle would augment through your phone through their app. And I said, man, this is the coolest thing I've ever seen. And that actually really sparked the fusion right there. Man, that's print and digital. I said, well, how can I bring this back into my space on a more advertising level? And that's how that journey really began, just figuring out that solution. And then really trying to figure out the component on how to make it easily accessible. Because when I first started, man, I'm telling you, I went through loops and hurdles trying to find a provider to create this. So I said, okay, well, I need to be the guy to come up with something simple for somebody like me looking to solve that problem could just tap into.
Yeah.
And that's really how InterApp became what it is today. A self-serve augmented reality platform specifically targeted towards graphic designers, artists, and I would even say media agencies. These people are in charge of creating your advertising graphics, your window graphics for your store, your banner ads, your billboard ads, your printed graphics, whether it's going to be an advertising print publication, right, or direct mail. These guys are responsible for creating that content. So they would be the ones who would help you create this embed this AR experience, digital component. So that's who we started gearing the platform towards, were the creators of that content. and that really has been we that target audience has really resonated with the platform, and that's how we kind of said, okay, well, let's double down and continue to target them and improve the platform to get these types of users on board, and we've been pretty successful at that.
Yeah, and I know for me, I personally think that's genius, targeting the creator, because the creative space is inherently one where you're always on the cutting edge of technology. Because as a creator, you know, whether you're doing physical print, but more accurately with the social media that we see today, you always have to be adapting to the trends and the different changes on these platforms, that you are just the cutting edge.
Yes.
So it makes a lot of sense to target those people. And I know, so I first saw and used and interacted with InterApp at TEDx Roseville at Acton.
Yes.
And there were the boards, and I don't even remember exactly what the interactive experience was, but I remember being like, oh, that's so cool, because I've been the tech guy in the family and the creative in the family for years, and so I've always been playing around with AR, and I was like, oh, this is a really cool way to utilize it, because I've always done the thing where you grab like the app, you open up, and then you like drop things in, but it's one of those things where I was exploring some of this, the way the platform functions.
Yes.
And it's so cool to me. And one of the ideas I've been playing with recently, because I take some classes at a school in Auburn, and I'm on their yearbook club, and I'm like, I was talking with them, I was like, what if we did interactive yearbooks, right? Yeah. Because I'm like, we have all of these events, but we should make it so you can scan the page with the event and see a video of the event. I'm like, and I love this idea of integrating these things, especially because what people don't realize is that the most comparable thing to InterApp right now and other platforms similar to it are actually QR codes. Yeah. And we use QR codes on a daily basis.
Yes.
And what people don't necessarily realize is this just makes the experience more seamless.
Yes. Yes.
And I think it's interesting because I feel like AR for the past, 5 to 10 years as it's been developing has kind of just been a space where it's been there, right?
Yeah.
They're like, oh, this is a thing, but it's not the thing. And then a couple months ago, Apple announces their AR VR hybrid headset. Yep. Which actually should release. So Apple's next event is on the 7th, and they'll announce the release date then. So it should be releasing in 2024.
Yeah.
And it brings this entire ecosystem of both VR, which was a bit more of a valid space where there was a lot more going on, but AR specifically, Apple has basically just gone on and said, well, AR is the thing now. And I think it's interesting because a lot of platforms like InterApp and all these other things, like once you start integrating with these developer kits for that headset, because that headset will be the most owned headset, especially the most owned VR headset on the planet, purely due to the fact, and AR headset purely due to the fact that it's Apple. And people buy Apple because it's Apple. And so I think as we look, I'm like, okay, so there's going to be millions of these units out there. And so if you start getting into the dev kits and you integrate, InterApp or some of these other things in this inherent experience where people are going to be looking around, and I wouldn't be surprised if Apple integrates something similar where you just look at things and it pops up like a HUD, like the things that you see on like in Iron Man and all of these different things. So I find it interesting, and I'm curious, where do you see the AR space going as it becomes a more solid part of our everyday lives?
And it's interesting you bring that up because I've been developing in the AR space, man, for at least almost, I say going on 8 years now. One, just research and research
R&D.
and development, but that very first, I'd say 3 years really has just been more research than anything else. And when I came into the space 8 years ago, AR was actually still had a footing in the world. AR probably was even at that point in time at least a good 8, if not 10 years old. So I kind of came in, I wouldn't say late, but mid-range of AR. And even then, that was still kind of early, because there were other platforms out there that would enable you to use AR kind of to the degree that we have, but we've perfected that per se. But they didn't cut it. In other words, they're not around anymore. If you look them up, you're not going to find them. They either went bankrupt or they're just not up anymore. And in my opinion, those guys were really early. They were really early because AR, because of the application of AR, I think the traction makes it very difficult, and that's why we've honed in on our specific targeting, with creators, because we're like, these are going to be the people that are going to be utilizing AR and advocating for the application of AR in these specific industries. So, like I said, when I got into it, it was still early on that research end of things. I think what kind of really kicked things off was when Facebook decided to become Meta, and their whole mantra had become VR AR. And I think they kind of kicked off that race with Apple. But once they made that shift, when you convert a whole company, a legacy company, into a brand new enterprise, Meta, that says a lot, in my opinion, to what the company, specifically the intricate people inside, Mark Zuckerberg of one, sees the value in AR and VR and AR really. So, where I see it going, I still say there are going to be some challenges that we're
Of
going to
course.
face with adoption of augmented reality. However, companies like Meta and Apple, I think, will help with the integration of the adoption. So I always say, me and my team, when we meet, we always talk about how well positioned we are with InterApp, because we actually are the only platform that exists that enable people to utilize AR at such a easy point and entry
Yeah.
level. There's no development necessary. There's no additional equipment you need to buy. You actually just plug into our platform via our creator interface, and you can start embedding AR experiences on top of your artwork right away.
Oh,
So
shit.
because of what
Okay.
we've created, I believe we made it very easy to do so. Looks like you're frozen. Are we still on?
Anyways, what you were talking about was just the platform and how it's easier than everything else, and
Yeah, yeah. And we always talk about within our organization how, one thing about technology is timing is always going to be key. And I think that AR has been one of those things to where the timing's been kind of hard to optimize on, because you'll have these little bits of momentum with AR, specifically AR, at times. So, like I said, when I first got started early on, AR was still early, and there wasn't much traction there, right? And then here we come, we start pioneering our technology, and all of a sudden you kind of see this movement in AR, people gain an interest in it. Then it kind of slows down again, and then it picks back up when Facebook turns over to Meta, and they enter into this space and they start pioneering, all of their new ideas into this space. So it picks back up, and then it kind of slows down. I would say we still had a slowdown in the last year and a half or so, and now you have Apple getting into this race with their headset. So now it picks back up. So the timing for AR has really just been kind of lackluster at most. However, companies like InterApp, for creating what we've created, I say we're positioned enough to where now the adoption could be there, because now that you have headsets available where people can start interacting with the world around them through AR, now you have InterApp who can enable you to start putting those types of experiences in the environment, like I said, without any development necessary, right? You could just come onto the InterApp platform and you can start creating those AR experiences, whether they're going to be real world experiences or whether they're going to be experiences embedded into some sort of printed graphic of some sort. Uh, Let me put you on pause really quick. My son just walked in the door.
No problem.
Let's see. Can we hold?
You just I'll just cut it out
Oh,
later.
all right. Hang on. Luke.
Just gonna talk right now and
Sorry about that.
oh, no problem.
So yeah, so you know the original question you asked me is where do I see AR going? I think with the adaptation of Apple's headset, I see AR kind of getting that next charge of energy again. And that's what we need in this space. We really need that in this space because, you know, more so than anything, I'm just a big advocate on the the powerful application of AR. I'm all about taking something static, which is going to be your printed graphics, and making them dynamic by embedding some rich media digital content inside of them. And really, the most basic, easiest way of doing that is video. Like you said, your yearbook. Hey, why can't we interact with this yearbook and have some video presentation pop up that explains everything, right? And that complements the page, you know, and our platform makes it easy to do that. But now with Apple's headset, this really says, hey, AR is going to be a technology that you really need to start paying attention to because its application is very broad and it can be very beneficial to the world.
Yeah, for sure. So I think as you were talking about the momentum, I think that they got that charge of momentum when Facebook rebranded to Meta and the Metaverse. But I think in many ways Facebook rushed it because the Oculus Quest 2, I have one, great product. The issue was it didn't apply to my life that much because I don't spend a bunch of hours on video games. And when I play video games, it's because I want to sit down and relax. But then when they came out with the Quest Pro, right, it wasn't refined, right? It was weird. It sat on your face weird. And from the reviews I've seen, it just wasn't comfortable. And so, but what I think is they came into it, they tried to make this big, you know, this is the future, but then people lost interest. But when I see Apple come into the space, Apple is one of the few companies that is elite at holding interest. Because when you see Apple come into a space, they're never in it and then leave very quickly. They don't tend to fail in a space, right? Like AirPods alone makes more money than Spotify.
Yeah. Yeah.
At just the headphones makes more money than Spotify. And so I think it's interesting as we look, and yes, the current price point is high for an Apple headset, but it is targeted at the pro user, pro user that might have bought a Quest Pro. But the pro user who saw that it wasn't refined. And that Apple's product, like when I watched that launch event, my mind was blown. Because the sheer amount of technology that they threw in that thing.
One thing that Apple is good at is simplifying, right? They've got simplification down when it comes to technology. I mean, even when you look at the iPhone, you know, when it first came out, it was just simple. So I think by them coming into this space with the AR, VR headset, they understand how to simplify it. You know, very few companies, and actually we can even say not companies at all other than Apple, have that innate skill set to simplify. They understand the user to the point to where they'll put so much research and development in just simplifying for the user to understand. And I think that's where that momentum will kick back off for AR again, because now they'll see how simple it is to utilize this. But the next solution is content. You need content to interact with augmented reality, and that's where the world is starting to lack. Okay, you have companies, front-facing or back-facing companies, if you will, like Apple, who will create the medium for you, but now you need the content creator. You need content to interact with, and you know, companies like InterApp specifically, I think we've done a good job at trying to position ourselves in this space as the place to come to create this content. And yeah, utilize a headset like the Apple headset to interact with this. But it's so simple to use. So yeah, you can easily interact with the content. So I think that's where the momentum will kind of kick back off again. Hey, this thing is so easy. How come
Yeah.
everybody isn't using it?
Well, yeah, and I think that there's going to be this first version, and then the interesting thing is Apple always iterates, and so I see the price also going down to where I think that they will still have the Pro, right? Because it is called the Vision Pro, but
Yeah.
there will probably just be an Apple Vision,
Vision,
right?
yeah.
But I think the biggest thing why Apple is so good at simplification is also brand trust, because
Yep.
when a company oversimplifies but you don't trust their ability to execute, they
Yeah.
didn't do anything,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So realistically, when Apple says hand tracking, no need for controllers, if Facebook said that, just from experience, I'd be like,
Yeah,
it's not
questionable.
gonna, yeah. But when Apple says it, I'm like, okay, well now I
Okay.
can feel like Tony Stark grabbing this over here, and I'm
Boom, 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 boom.
and the thing is I know it's gonna be seamless, but I also know that if there's a tiny bit of lacking, Apple will be very quick to fix it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think the biggest thing Facebook did, because in some ways they didn't execute to their goal, right? But the biggest thing that Facebook did, and they're obviously still going to continue to work on these things, like Facebook, unlike Google, so the interesting that I've noticed with Google, they kill products so quickly. Stadia, all these other products, they just kill them the second they don't work. Facebook doesn't do that. And what I'm seeing is the biggest thing Facebook did, though, is they forced Apple's hand, right? Apple was going to get into this game no matter what. But I think that they accelerated Apple's timeline
Yeah.
because Apple was able to gauge market interest without that product being
Yeah.
perfectly executed. So they were able to see, okay, there are people who want this product, but all they need is it more refined. And that's
Yeah.
what Apple realistically does.
Yeah.
The iPhone gets features that have been on Android for 10 years, but the features the iPhone gets are they're refined and they're simple. Same thing with AirPods, right? They have noise cancellation and they have these other features, but they do them better than
Yeah.
everyone else. And so
Yeah.
I think that's the fundamental thing that I'm excited about. I'm excited to try one of the headsets.
Yeah.
I'm not going to buy one.
Yeah,
It's
me too.
$3,500. but I want to buy. I want to like play with one of those headsets because I want to feel like Iron Man, and that's what
Yeah.
Apple is trying to do.
Yeah.
I mean, and I'm noticing the glasses you have on right now kind of look like the glasses that from yeah.
They're the first replica of the AR glass, InterApp glass.
Yeah, man. So I kind of want to just move away from this a little bit and just dive into, like, what was this journey like? When you, how did you get into business, and what has this journey been like?
Yeah, so I got off into business. Really, the graphic design space came from me just hanging around my dad. My dad actually, from the beginning of time, in my opinion, was one of the first technologists ever. He was doing computer generated photos before that was even a thing. I'm talking about like the 1980s, late 1980s, early 1990s. He used to have a booth at the state fair, called California State Fair, and he was printing digital photos before there were even printers. And then he would print them out and put them on t-shirts before that even became a thing. So I grew up in that space. So that's always been his hustle, if you will. He's a retired school teacher, administrator now, but that's always been his career has been education, but his side hustle has always been technology. He could build a computer, he could take down a computer, build it from scratch and put it back together, but he really just found an interest in digital photography. So we always had the programs on our computers for his work. So CorelDRAW, Photoshop. I had the very first Photoshop when it first came out, the very first CorelDRAW when it came out. So I was using these programs for school projects. I grew up using them. So when the teachers would say, "Oh, you need to use a computer to create certain, projects," that was easy for me to do because we had a computer office. My friend always tells me today, "You're the only person I know whose house had a computer lab. so so he's always been a technologist, and really the graphic design space interests me because my senior year I was working on my senior project, which required me to utilize some graphic design programming. And a friend of his was starting a business. He said, "Hey, can you design me some business cards?" And I said, "Yeah, sure." So I designed him a business card, and he actually paid me for it. And I said, "Oh, I can actually make some money doing this." So right out of high school, I actually started my very first business, which was graphic design and printing. I called it, what was the name of my business? Promotional Designs is what it was called. And I really just went around and I solicited myself as a graphic designer to help people design their print marketing materials for their products. And I was brokering printing at that time. And then as I got older and got more mature in the business and earned some money, I then started investing in my own equipment, opened up some locations, and that's how I got off into the business space of graphic design. But primarily, I always knew I wanted to go into business for myself right out of high school, and this was that vehicle. Once I discovered that, I just really took off with it.
Yeah, and I find that really interesting because a lot of people, don't have the opportunity to just kind of grow up in that environment where they just kind of go into what they want to do because they figured that out early on. I'm kind of in that situation where I'm lucky to have kind of figured out what I want to do. I want to create content digitally in the form of video. And I think the interesting thing is when you're a digital creator in today's day and age, you label one thing as your quote unquote thing, but you can do everything. You can do basically everything. So I have fun with graphic design. I'm not an insane graphic artist, but I can do it to the point of competency, which is interesting. But I think it's an interesting journey that you had there where you knew what you wanted to do, and it was just a constant progress of the next step and the next step. And I know a lot of people get lost in the what do I want to do, but I think the biggest thing is you just have to do. You can't wait and decide what you want to do, because the only way to know is to try the things that you don't want to do. Because I mean, I'm lucky, right? I wanted to learn how to do an edit like Zach King. I don't know if you know who that is, but he's a big digital creator who did these like editing magic videos where he'd like jump through a door and it was edited and super cool. And so I wanted to learn to do that. So I looked up a tutorial and downloaded a free video editing platform, and that was like 5 or 6 years ago. And so I think it was 5 years ago, 2018-ish. So I've been editing since around 2018. And I've never stopped enjoying it. There have been times when I stopped doing as much editing. And then the podcast just kind of happened because Rodney, who we both know, it's our mutual connection, I was like, I had the name Conversation Station in my mind. I'm like, ooh, if I started a podcast, I'd call it the Conversation Station. And Rodney was visiting us around Thanksgiving, not last year, the year before, so almost 2 years ago. And he's like, yeah, let's start it. I'll be your first guest. And then we did that, and it's constantly evolved from there. When it started, awesome. it was not the most professional looking, right? Like I still have the same camera, I still have the same all of these sorts of things, but it wasn't. But it was a different graphics and stuff. It looked like a Fortnite video. It was all colorful, but I've just kind of expanded from there and just had fun with it along the journey. And the podcast has kind of gone on and off, but doing 30 episodes in 30 days right now, which has been challenging, but it's been harder than I expected, but I expected it to be harder than I expected, which is interesting, especially because this weekend we were on a trip. We went to Tahoe for Labor Day, and so we're like camping, and I'm recording in the car, then going to a coffee shop. So here's the big tip. For anyone, this is just a random thought because it's in my mind. If you ever need to do a Zoom call or upload footage, right? Upload a video. Don't go to Starbucks. Go to the Pete's Coffee in O'Reilly's. because I will tell you, Rayleigh's has the fastest internet. Every Rayleigh's has like 60 megabit per second upload speed, which is insane for upload speed. Like download speed, you can get that anywhere.
Yeah.
But I always pick a Rayleigh's because it is worth, even if it's a 30-minute drive, depending on the size of video you're uploading. I've actually thought about just when I'm at home, just going to a Rayleigh's to upload because it's so much faster. But I think it's interesting to just keep in mind the constant evolution, and also understand that if you have that path laid out in front of you and you're in something you care about and surrounded by people you enjoy being around, then you are one lucky person. You are so incredibly lucky, and that's one of the things that I've had to fundamentally understand, because people are, and then I've been a natural public speaker, and so people will ask me like, how did you find video editing? You know, I'm like, that's just the first thing I tried. It's just the first thing I tried, and then I met Rodney, and then I saw the way he conducted things. I'm like, okay, who doesn't want to like work the way Rodney does, because he just has fun with everything. And then so from there, and then people are like, you should teach public speaking. I'm like, no, I shouldn't, because I never had to learn it. Right? It's like I can't teach a skill I never had to learn. So it's like
natural, very natural.
There's a YouTube channel full of videos of me when I was little, just from our babysitter uploading them, and it's so funny because I've been the same since I was 4 years old in terms of public speaking and just not caring, right, about what other people think. And so people are like, how do you do that? I'm like, I just do it. I just talk. And I just ramble. And now with the podcast, I just started a sub show where I just talk, right? And that's a bit more scary than talking to a guest, because you're just sharing what you believe. And then when you release an episode that might ruffle some feathers, you're like, oh no, this is scary.
Did I upset anybody?
I'm like, I probably upset someone, but you know, I think it's a really interesting thing to explore, and it's an interesting thing to understand how fortunate, you know, we are in our lives.
Yeah, I totally agree. You know, and just to kind of segue off what you were saying with being surrounded by people, you know, my biggest thing was I did have support. You know, doing what I wanted to do, to go into business for yourself or to be independent in any form or fashion is a challenge. You know, and it's very difficult, and you need a support system. You know, I was fortunate enough to have my parents as a support system. You know, they supported me as I took on my endeavors and tried to grow my business from nothing into something. And then as I was growing and evolving in business, I was fortunate enough to come around my team, who, you know, my employee base who really came in and supported me at my place of business, helped me run the shop, helped me, you know, work with customers, all of that stuff. And then as I pivoted into tech, you know, being very fortunate enough to come across my team that's helped me develop InterApp into what it is now. And that's one thing I've always said, you know, in business, you need a support system, you need a team to help you be successful. And as a leader, you need to be able to effectively communicate to your team your wants and your needs, and then also be very appreciative that they're helping you out. You know, nobody owes you anything at the end of the day. So for them to come around and want to support, be very appreciative to them in that respect. So yeah, I totally agree with you when you say you need help. You know, you need support, because you can't get anywhere as a one-man show. It's difficult. You know, there are times where certain roles I wear, I'm a one-man show. But for the most part, you know, when you have the team around you to assist you in certain aspects in any area of your life and business, man, it makes a world of a difference.
It totally does. So my question would be, like, especially, maybe, I don't necessarily mean once you're in the business, because that's a different support set, but as you're getting into a business, as you're exploring these roads, for a young person who is trying to develop themselves and get into entrepreneurship, how do you build that support system? How do you, and what are if you were to give someone the keys to building success, both both mentally and
Yeah,
emotionally, what would
yeah.
those be?
You know, I'm gonna try to answer that question to the best of my ability, just based off of my experience, because everybody's circumstance is gonna be different. You know, everybody, it's
Yeah.
such a dynamic experience. But I would say the core foundation, especially when you're just getting started, is being able to effectively communicate to those people that are going to be your support system. So, like in my case, it was my parents. You know, when I said, you know, I want to quit school and I want to start a business, that wasn't really welcomed very well in my family. Both my sisters are college graduates, they went to college. My dad's obviously an educator, my grandma's an educator, my uncle's an educator. So, you know, to get that type of to tell these people that you're in for you're in for a lashing, if you will. But one thing I've learned early on, because I wrestled in high school, came back and coached for 15 years, but my coach, my wrestling coach, would always say, you know, if you can effectively communicate your goals with your parents, at least you can get them on track to what you're trying to do. And that's one thing that I did, right? I told them this is what I want to do, and I kind of outlined those things of what I was going to do. And that's kind of how I got them on board. It wasn't easy, but I got them on board. But more importantly, whatever goals I set, I continue to accomplish them, so they can see the progress. That's going to be the most important thing. They have to be able to see the progress to say, okay, I can support that. You know, one story I always give is me and my mom would always be like cat and mouse. You know, we'd always argue about, you know, what I was doing in the world, right, with my life, especially about business. But I always say we'd fast track from that point. Let's say 6 years later, she's in the store helping me build out my first location. You know, so that's how you talk about winning over support, just being able to accomplish those goals. So that's going to be the first thing, right? Just outlining those goals, making them clear to yourself, and then communicating those to the people that are going to be your support system starting off. That's first. And then two, mentally taking on those goals and making sure you accomplish them, because those are going to be your checklist, if you will, as you hang on one second, Parker.
No problem.
I'm on the
Yes, but but the
Excuse me.
pizza's good. The oven's hot.
Okay, I'm gonna cook it later.
Oh man, the oven's hot. We better be careful.
Three kids. That was my eldest daughter, Leilani, 6 years old.
All I heard was pizza and oven, and I just
Yeah.
thought that sounds really important, man.
Yeah, they love my pizza. I always gourmet my pizza. So yeah, so really that's gonna be your next thing, is taking a mental note, taking time to pat yourself on the back when you have certain accomplishments, whether they're big or small, because that's where you're really gonna have to have your mental wellness check. Hey man, I'm actually doing something right. You know, you may not get the outside recognition you need, but as long as you know you're accomplishing what you set out to accomplish, you know, take mental note, pat yourself on the back, because those are going to be the things that's going to help you get through the most difficult times, referring back to how you came through the last challenge. Um, and then really just perseverance, just never give up. I think that's going to be the biggest thing. Like with me and my business, printing starting off, perseverance. You know, it was really more evolution than revolution, right? It's not like I started my business and all of a sudden I got out and I got awarded all these different contracts and here I am. No, it actually took me time. I had to build a customer base from scratch. You know, I had to build customers from day one. Door knocking, telephone calls, you know, just being a good service provider when people come in, just being very jovial and attentive to them so that they stick around. So all of those things kind of help you along in the process.
Yeah.
So that would be my advice. That would be my advice.
Yeah, and I think the for me, at least on my end, what has been big for me, and it's three words. It's find a mentor, right? So
Mm-hmm.
so
Yep.
so in whatever you want to do, right? So try a bunch of different things and figure out what gets you amped. And right, when you're a kid, even when you have school, you have the opportunity to try a lot of things. You can do an internship for 3 months, and if you don't
Yep.
like that, you go do a
Yep.
different internship.
Yep.
But my
Yep.
big thing would be find a mentor, but not just in one aspect of your life. There can be
Yes.
multiple. So I know for me on the business side of things, right? On like what I want to do, right? I start. I mean, my parents have known Rodney for years. They worked with him in a network marketing business, and they actually kind of did some mentorship with him as he was getting into business. But one of the most interesting things for me is like I was lucky enough to right as I was really starting to do these things in 2020 is when I first really started doing stuff consistently with Rodney, right? And from there, like seeing the way he conducts business is one of the most interesting things because as opposed to like you, it is hard to like Rodney's always so amped about business, right? I mean, we both know that, but
Yeah.
it's very interesting because I'm like, it is the way he conducts himself, the way he handles his business, the level to which he performs, the team he surrounds himself with is so incredible. But having someone who's more experienced than you, and but also having someone there to give you opportunities to show your work and to give you opportunities and help you understand the reality, because I do stuff for him, but the other big aspect was a 12-month young men's mentorship program called Apogee Strong. And that is just, and the entire point of that is building leaders, right? And that's a bit different from, your professional mentorship, right?
Yeah.
Where, or in business, or what
Yeah.
Rodney, what I get from Rodney. But it was so huge because, so my thing would be find mentors and talk to the people who are experienced. I think one of the biggest traps we can fall into is this idea of college in many ways, where it's become such a standard part of our world. But sometimes I'm like, if you want to learn business, go do some business. Don't talk to the professor who talks about business theory,
Yeah. Yeah.
because there is such a big gap between theory
Yeah.
and reality. And those are my things, and it gives you perspective. And if you can find the right thing and the right mentor, because some mentors aren't going to be it, right? You might find a space you like, but not like the mentor. And you can just keep exploring that. But again, I can't stress how lucky I've been, because my mom kind of threw me into that Apogee program. It was so impactful. My parents just happened to know Rodney, right? And he's awesome. I mean, I don't know. He could probably. I mean, he's so charismatic. He could probably sell you a stick for like 10 grand.
Yeah, Rodney, man. Yeah, I've known Rodney for almost 15 years. We met in this space, in this printing business of mine. That's how we met. But that also goes to show you about just having integrity when it comes to business. That's another point I would throw in there. Just having integrity and just wanting to do right by people is very important, because you never know down the road when you'll need somebody, right? Just imagine, like I said, Rodney, we started off, I printed flyers for him when he was in college. Him and his partner would come into my store and they would order flyers from me because they would throw parties for the fraternities they were a part of. So just imagine, even then, that you're talking about 15 years ago. If I was doing bad business then, and then here I come circle back around 15 years later talking about, oh, I'm developing an app and I can utilize your service, do you think you want to do business with me? Like, no, I remember when you
No.
couldn't do my flyers right, or you just had horrible customer service, right? But that's also important. Just just wanting to do good by the customer and having the integrity to do business. So now when you fast forward 15 years from now, it's easy for him to come and say, yeah, I don't mind doing business with you because we've done small business in the past, and it was a phenomenal experience, and I know what type of businessman you are. So that's another thing I would throw in there is that integrity. But a funny story to your point about college and learning business from the college professor who has no experience. That was kind of a put off for me. So I used to take business classes at Sac City when I was forced to go to school. So I was doing business, but I was in the process of starting my print business then, and I used to run ads. Like I was always keen on advertising, but I would run
Well,
ads.
I mean,
in
yeah, you
Sacramento
sold
Bee.
people paper ads, so
Yeah, exactly. So I was keen on it. All right. My cell phone would ring in the middle of a class, business class, and I'm fielding orders, and I'd have to get up and leave to take the orders. But here I am listening to him talking about theory, business theory, as you say, but I'm out here actually experiencing that. So I always thought that was funny. And that's not to disparage anybody going to school, because you'll need the book smarts, because there's still lessons I've learned in his class. That was an accounting class, accrual accounting method that I've learned that I use to this day. So I'm not going to disparage it, but
yeah.
it's just funny.
But I think it's not that there isn't value there. I think it's that there's no one step solution
Yes,
to these
absolutely.
problems.
Absolutely.
It's never just gonna be, okay, well, I'm gonna go to this class and then I'm gonna be set in business.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
what I think is more important is finding people who are doing the thing, like and finding people who if you want to learn accounting, right? Find someone who's in that business, like, but you can still go take a college class.
Yeah, absolutely.
But always have a mental comparison in your mind. Be able to look at okay, well, here's what they're teaching and here's what's being done.
Mm-hmm.
And if those things don't align, then question your professor.
Yeah.
Question what's going on there. And I see this on a daily basis, because I also have an internship at a non-profit video place. But my issue is they run things like it's 2005, right? And that it's what I've seen there. And so, but the only reason that I know they run things that way is because I've seen the way Rodney runs things, and the way a successful business runs things versus a nonprofit. But here's what I think is interesting. Even if you're a nonprofit, you should still function similar to a successful business.
Yeah, absolutely.
You should still function as close to that as you can, while still, while still giving away the services you want to give away.
Yeah.
Because there is no reason not to, right? Because as a nonprofit, you obviously want to help people, but as a business, you also want to help people.
Yeah.
Like Rodney's number one thing is just provide value.
Yeah.
Because if you provide value now and don't get paid, in 3 years, when the guy that you used to print flyers for, the guy you used to print flyers for, you need his help.
Yep.
Well, now you proved yourself.
Yeah.
And basically, and so when I hear him say that, and then the people there the other day, the director legitimately said, just because we can do something to an elite degree kind of means we don't.
Interesting.
And she was talking about people that aren't paying for services they're giving away for free. But I'm like, how are you going to prove yourself to the people that are paying, that are going to pay, if you're not going to do a good job, or if you're not going to put in that extra effort on the free stuff?
Yeah.
And so it was one of those things where I'm like, but isn't that the fundamental, like the biggest business lesson?
Yeah. Absolutely.
But
Absolutely.
I don't know. It's one of those interesting things to compare and see the people who have been in business for their entire lives versus the people that may have been in corporate or been an employee for a while and are just trying to get into it. And the issue is that working for someone is very different than having people work for you.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's two different games.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I think I just want to move into a couple of like questions that I like to ask my guests, just kind of as we wrap things up, because I do have a hard stop at 2:15. But my first question for you is on the aspect of success. What is the biggest aspect, element, or definition of success that is completely overlooked?
I would say the definition of success that is completely overlooked is, honestly, I'm gonna say it's gonna be, how could I put it? Happiness. Just being content, right? Being able to say, you know what, I've arrived. Whatever that is to you, but I've arrived. I'm happy. I'm content. I don't care what other problems I'm facing right now. I can face them, but I'm still happy. Right? Like
Yeah.
for me, that works because, my definition of success is my family. I got a beautiful wife. I got three beautiful, healthy kids. I get to spend time with them. I don't care what problems I have going on in the business world. At the end of the day, being able to spend time with them, that's being successful. Having the time. Most people don't even have the time to spend with their family or kids, but I do. I do have
Yeah.
that time to be able to do that, and I'm content with
Yeah,
that. I'm happy with that.
one of my favorite ways to define success is the definition of success is not how much money you make, because there are people making $3 billion a year
Yep.
and are miserable, and there are people making $30,000 a year who are as happy as can be.
Yep.
And in my eyes, success is simply living a sustainably happy lifestyle.
Yeah. Yeah.
Living a life that makes you want to get out of bed every day. I guess it's kind of funny that I said that, because my next question would be, what does get you out of bed every day?
Yeah, and it would be, once again, my family, just wanting to be able to provide for them and having the time to spend with them. Like, we love to travel, so being able to experience new things with my family is something that motivates me to push myself to that next level, or push myself to that next earning point, or closing that deal, or whatever the case may be. And then even if those things don't happen, still being able to make the time to spend with them. Getting out of bed to do that is what fuels me and keeps me motivated.
Yeah, and I think personally, it is those connections you have, whether it be family, whether it be your friends, just the people you care about, are the fuel that makes you get out of bed. And I think it goes for a lot of people, because I know personally, if I'm not getting out and interacting with the world, I burn out quicker than quick.
Yeah.
But when I am interacting with people, when I am spending time with people I enjoy being around, it's near impossible to burn
You're
out.
energized. Yeah.
And then I guess my final question is, to the listener listening to this right now, what is the one thing that you want to leave them with to take forward, the one piece of advice, the one takeaway you want to leave them with as they move into their lives going forward?
I would say, kind of back to what we're saying, define what success is to you, and work towards that. That takeaway is going to be define what that success point is. So, like I said, for my case, it's my family. Having that clear, concise definition for yourself, I think, will help you further yourself in life, in business, and in career.
Thank you. Yeah, I would agree. Define success, define the route, and take the steps to get there. The hardest decision in life is figuring out what you want to do. So figure that out and keep going. All right. Thank you so much for coming on here, Will. This was so fun.
It was. Thanks for having me, Parker.
Yeah, of course. Thank you guys at home for watching. I'm Parker Emerald. I've been talking to Will Brown, and this has been The Conversation Station.